All right, well, good evening. Thank you for coming over, spending some time with us. We have some really good information to share, and we want to get information as well. My name is Ryan Stevenson. I serve as the Director of Vibrant Community and Neighborhoods. That is the system in the city that handles your golf courses and festivals, public art, parks, trails, so all of those sorts of things. So this is a continuation in our surveying and making sure that we connect with the community about the upgrades to the pool and community center. So we have a really good program for you this evening. Just wanted to get things kicked off and say hello. And I'm handing it over to Derek Cool, who's going to introduce our consultants and run through the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. My name is Derek Cool with the City of Arvada. I'm the Deputy Director reporting to Ryan in the Parks Department. So our excellent project manager, Chad Hollingsworth, couldn't make it tonight. He's under the weather at the moment, so I'm going to try to take his notes and run with it. And just to orient everybody, give everybody a little bit of an overview of why we're here. We're in the midst of preparing a master plan for the Lake Arbor Community Center and the golf course. The master plan was originally intended to study the Lake Arbor Community Center and the outdoor pool. As many of you know, both were built in the 1970s, and they have really surpassed their expected lifespan. The community center and pool are city-owned facilities and are operated by our partners at the Apex Parks and Rec District. Hillary from Apex is here. Hillary. So if you have any questions throughout this evening, we could rope in Hillary to help answer some of those questions. The pool recently required repairs in 2024 to remain operational. However, these facilities need a longer-term strategy and vision. The community center also features a pre-K childcare program for children ages 3 to 5 years old. Also, later on in this process, we decided to include the Lake Arbor Golf Course. We wanted to do so and include this in the master planning effort in the hopes of just getting all of your feedback on how to enhance the golf course for players of all ages, abilities, while ensuring we're remaining financially resilient and sustainable across the board. The team really wanted to take a comprehensive look at the entire area. And with that said, we received tremendous feedback back on February 20th from the community about the golf course specifically, about the design, about modernization and improvements to the golf course. I'm more than happy to chat with anybody about the golf course after our presentation with our consultant. We can meet over here in the back somewhere, and well prepared to answer any questions you might have about the golf course, but please wait until after this presentation to talk about the golf course. The master plan that we have will guide the redevelopment of the community center, the pool, the golf course, and surrounding parkland. And over the next 5 to 10 years, the plan aims to ensure equitable access and safe connections to the recreation amenities, address community needs throughout a market analysis, needs assessment, and community engagement, provide conceptual designs and recommendations that will be used to inform City Council so that they can decide the future direction of this project. And then just one other item to note, beyond this study right now, no other funds have been allocated or budgeted at this time for any future work. So really the funds that have been outlined are just for this study at this point in time. So I want to pass it over to our consulting team that we've been working with, and Shannon, I think I'm going to give it to you.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody for being here tonight. I'm Shannon Weber with Design Concepts. We're the landscape architect firm that's in charge of this project, taking the lead on it. I've got a great team here with me tonight, and I'm going to introduce those guys to you. But first off, we thought we would share with you guys what the agenda is for this evening so you know what to expect. Of course, we're going to, much like what Derek already spoke about, we're going to just review the Lake Arbor, the history of the project, team introductions like I mentioned. We're going to go over what the existing site looks like. And again, we're not looking at the golf course, we're just looking at the center itself tonight. We also have a couple of concepts that we want to show you guys tonight and kind of present our ideas. We've gone through the process of coming up with like 3 or 4 different concepts, and we've narrowed it down to a couple, which is what we want to show you guys tonight and get your feedback on that. Also building. We also have some ideas for the building that's going to go on the site. So we want to go through all of that with you tonight. And then also, in the very end, because we know it's hard to remember one concept after another through a presentation, we're going to have both concepts up on the slide at one time so you guys can compare concept 1 to concept 2. And the whole idea tonight is to get your feedback on these ideas, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to combine all of your ideas and our ideas into one master plan concept to include in our report. So that's why it's so very important that we get your feedback tonight on this project. We're going to take a little bit of a break. Like I said, we're going to ask you guys questions, get your feedback, and then we're going to jump into the pool concepts. So we have a couple of different pool concepts that we want to show you as well, because we know that's a very important amenity at this center. In addition to that, of course, is aquatic feature examples. Again, we're going to take a little bit of a break, ask you some questions, get your feedback on the pool. And then at the very end, we do have a quick little exercise. It's a fun exercise. It's a voting exercise. I'll hand out some dots if you guys want to go to the back boards that we show a lot of what we're presenting tonight on those boards in the back of the room. And just kind of let us know what's your favorites. I think each one of you will get 5 dots, something along those lines. If you can just put your dot on your favorite, it's a really easy exercise. We can take it back and just take all the feedback that we've gotten from you guys tonight, in addition to your voting ideas, and combine it all together to put together that one final concept of a site. So with that being said, really quickly, I'm Shannon Weber with Design Concepts. We have Ainsley Haven Ridge. She's the project manager from Design Concepts. Annie O'Brien, she's helping us as a designer. We have Cole Henry, Aquatics, Councilman Hunsaker, and then Chris Kostelik, who's our architect on this project. So Collab and CKA. Did I get it right? CKA. Okay. So the whole team is here for you guys tonight to answer questions for you. Feel free, please, please give us your feedback, because nothing is set in stone. Nothing is determined. This is what we're going to do. This is really your chance to give us feedback on this project. Okay?
So this first board is just going to go over the existing site. So this is Lake Arbor Center, and to the right you'll see a vicinity map, and that thick purple outline on the vicinity map is the Lake Arbor Golf Course. So just to get your idea of where the Lake Arbor Center is in the middle of all that. And if anybody's been, you know it's right off of 83rd. And when you enter, there's an existing parking lot. We have 49 standard spots and then 3 ADA, so wheelchair spots existing. Right to the north is the athletic field, which we received some feedback has some drainage issues, not super well utilized. So you'll see in our concepts, we're trying to address some of those issues that we saw. And then to the right is the existing community center. That's where the preschool is located. We have a playground that is pretty new, was put in a couple years ago, so that's in pretty good shape. The pool is there as well, and then the tennis courts too, which we noted were in great shape. And again, just to give some visuals for what's going on at the site, the front entrance is that top left picture, and then just going left to right. Athletic field that I was talking about. And another picture of the athletic field, not super well utilized. We have those existing tennis courts, and then I'll hand it over to Cole to talk about the pool.
Hey guys, I'm Cole Henry with Councilman Hunsaker. We're the aquatics consultant, like Shannon mentioned. So yeah, the pool, just like Derek had said, it's it's reached its lifespan. The thing was built in the 70s, so past 50 years old, and that's typically what we see for a commercial pool. We got some issues with the pool deck. You can see kind of some bird bathing going on with some of the drainage on one of the pictures, and then some of those emergency repairs, involved even mechanical systems, pool finishes, pool tile, as well as ADA access. So there's various things on this pool that are currently grandfathered with the Colorado Pool Code, but if we touch the site as a whole, we're definitely going to want to replace that pool. So that's what we're going to be looking at.
Awesome. And then the last couple of images are just that existing playground. So pretty good shape, and just for reference for the rest of our presentation.
everybody gets a chance to talk. We're going to do this little musical chairs tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the building and some of the challenges there. Unlike the pool and its mechanical systems, the building also has challenges. The locker rooms no longer meet code. There are challenges just with the lifespan of the building and the age. In particular, the preschool has some challenges. Obviously, with the lack of a bathroom internal to the school, that program really can't be operated when the pool is in use because we can't sort of mix those children and bring them out into those areas. And so not just issues with the pool mechanical system, but issues with code, and then issues with adequately supporting the functionality. So I won't go through each and every picture for you, but recognize that this building, I think, in order to satisfy the current needs to go. If you were to renovate it, you would be replacing the walls to save the air is the only way to describe it. So I think that's something to keep in mind as we talk about the new concepts.
Okay, and with that, hey everybody, I'm Ainsley Havenridge. I'm a landscape architect with the design team. So what we've all been waiting for, concept number one, preliminary concept. I'm going to point out on the screen just so anyone in the back can see where I'm referencing, but again, like Shannon mentioned, very preliminary. We call these bubble diagrams, hence the circles and the ovals, because they are completely flexible, they're malleable, no hard lines really drawn on here. We're really just trying to focus on looking at the spatial relationships, right? The relationships between all the amenities side by side. So all these parts and pieces can move around. And like Shannon mentioned, we've done a couple of exercises where we started with more like 4 concepts, right? And we're moving parts and pieces around. For example, we were putting the pool in different places, like, well, what about if it sat in the northwest corner? But as you know, it's directly adjacent to neighbors, right? So that's not really an ideal location. So we've worked out some of those kind of obvious givens, and then these next 2 concepts will show you what we think are really 2 of the stronger ideas. So I'll walk you through it. Again, existing parking lot is right here, and you'll see that we've noted we're just simply suggesting to repave and restripe. Through those exercises, we also did look at moving the parking lot throughout the site, but quite frankly, it's very costly, and we found that the parking lot would probably have to decrease in size. And if we're adding more amenities and more attractions, losing parking is probably not going to be, the most ideal situation. So we kind of concluded we think repaving and restriping, maybe a little bit of grading if there's some drainage issues, is going to be the most cost-effective option. So repaving, again, 49 stalls that are standard, 3 ADA stalls, and then also, of course, it's really important to keep a drop-off zone. As we know, anyone with kids, dropping off, friends, family, and whatnot, it's always great to have a drop-off circulation, so we'll maintain that. And then I'll let Chris go through the building specifics, but this concept is showing 2 different buildings. So this first building up to the north is going to be what we're calling a multi-purpose building. So that would house a preschool and some community amenities. And then the lower building would be the pool building. So one idea is to keep all of these functions, these amenities, these features separate. And we can talk about that in a little bit as to why that's a really nice option. So north of the parking lot, you'd have, again, this multi-purpose building. You'd have a separate entry into the preschool. And then right here, this pink circle would be the preschool playground. And then behind that would be a preschool lawn. And if we are to build a new preschool for code, we would need to have a fenced-in separate playground outdoor area. So this would all be closed, fenced off, only to be used by the preschool. But behind that could be an open public lawn. And then this central piece right here, this orange kind of amoeba shape, if you will, would be what we're calling a pedestrian breezeway space. So this would be all open. Perhaps there's some sort of overhead architectural structure over top, but you could access here for free, and you could go back here to the public lawn, or you could go south to the public playground, which would be that purple building, or excuse me, purple oval. And then south of that, we've got our pool features. So the blue would be approximately a 10,000 square foot pool area. Cole, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's about twice the size of what's out there now, give or take.
I believe so, yeah.
So a nice enhancement for sure. And then also a pool lawn. We all know that green space at a pool is so desirable, so as much as we can include would be really great. And of course, these areas would be fenced off as well, as that would be a paid amenity. And I think that's kind of a good overview of the site. So Chris, I'll give it to you. You can talk about the building.
Thanks. And I'm not sure if we mentioned, but in all cases, existing tennis courts stay in place, great condition. So you're probably wondering in this situation, what the benefits might be to breaking this building in half. And I'll just go through that really quickly. So this idea that you have the preschool building next to the community space seems to make sense. Those are both either self-managed or non-paid use, they're rental. The other nice thing is the preschool can use that community space for some of their overflow programming and expand their usability. So they'd have a separate lobby with some restrooms. The other nice thing about this is we know that this is really a summer activity, right? The pool is really a summer program, which means now all of a sudden this other building that houses a lobby, paid access through the locker rooms to the pool and mechanical could actually shut down seasonally. Don't have to operate, maintain, winterize, all those things, this building. So you could just leave this building year-round for preschool and community use, shut this building down in the winter, and not have to operate a second building. So that's some of the thinking behind two separate pieces of architecture for what's now in one building. So, and I think Ainsley talked about all the connectivity, but having lockers nearby to the pool and pool lawn, good access to the mechanical for delivery of chemicals and whatnot, and then that good drop-off for parents to come walk their kids into preschool also makes a lot of sense. So that concept utilizes two buildings for the site.
All right, concept number 2. So, Chris, again, we'll get into details, but you'll see up here we have shifted one building, that's this L-shaped building, up to the northeast corner, and that we made that move just to think about, safety and screening from the adjacent golf course, right? So just thinking about how the building could be utilized for safety and screening. Similar drop-off area, right? Same at this north location. Similar idea where we'd have a really nice entry pedestrian space. Right here, again, here's a second shaded gathering area right here. That could be a pavilion, that could be a shelter, it could be a number of different things. And then we've got the pool just south of that. Again, similar, about 10,000 square feet. Pool lawn situated over here to the east. Again, access to the pool from the building right here. And then we've got a larger public open space down here that would again include, maybe some groupings of shelters or pavilions, the public playground down here in purple, and then a bigger public lawn at the edge of that pedestrian circulation down here. Again, existing tennis courts stay, circulation throughout as well for any of those open public spaces. And then similar for the preschool, again, we're going to have a fenced-in separate playground right here in pink. We've got the lawn just to the north of that. And then we'd have some additional public access along this west side that would lead to, again, another public lawn, open green space.
So now we have one building that houses all of those activities. And the idea behind this, again, off of that main public plaza, is you'd enter the lobby, you'd go left for those non-paid functions, community meeting hall, paid preschool that's managed internally. You'd have all the services for those, such as restrooms and other things. And if you go right through the lobby, that's where you go to the pay-to-use zone, passing staff and lockers, through lockers to the pool space. So housing everything in a single building, but still splitting that building down the middle between those activities that are sort of self-managed or free and those activities that are paid use as part of the pool. I will point out something that I probably forgot to, but just so everyone is aware, within the preschool, that box encompasses all of the things necessary to run a preschool. Offices, storage, that restroom, food prep areas. So it's not just one big classroom, it's just meant to represent a fully functioning licensed daycare program. So I think that's it. I think we've explained everything as quickly and concisely as is physically possible. So. Great. Oh, and some awesome pictures. You can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these are just some really inspirational photos, right? We call them precedent images. These are our exterior landscape precedent images. So we want to think about circulation up in that top left corner. That's going to be really important both for pedestrians and vehicles, right? We want to make sure it's a really safe space with lots of people, coming and going constantly. We can really update and improve the outdoor preschool space, which is really exciting, right? We can have outdoor painted games, new equipment. We can do nature play, which is always a nice addition. Maybe even gardening. All sorts of activities for the preschool would be really exciting. For our public lawn, we can host things like outdoor group fitness classes, right? If it's adjacent to a community center, that's a perfect place to have outdoor classes. connections are going to be really important to the neighborhood, right? Again, pedestrian circulation will be an emphasis, as will, of course, again, a public playground. We want to make sure we offer as much outdoor free play as we can. The pool lawn is a really big component of both of these concepts, and shaded seating again, overhead. We know how hot it gets every summer here, right? So we want to make sure we provide as much shaded opportunities as we can. And then the last one we threw on here is a community mural. This is such a perfect neighborhood amenity that maybe a community mural on the facade of the building could be, a really nice way for the community to get involved.
And then just food for thought, here's some other images of some of the activities in the building. Again, you can see all these different opportunities for a expanded, more enhanced licensed care program, a community space that maybe takes on more of a family room type of quality or more of a meeting room type of quality. And so those are the types of things we want to think about. How would you use that space if you had a community space available in this site? Making sure the lobby is clear, easy to understand, easy to move, easy to staff, good locker rooms with gender equitable and family change space, so we're not just doing men's and women's and wherever else is available, but actually deliberately using those spaces for gender equitable and family change. And other than that, just traditional community activities. So, well, there you have the two comparisons of those concepts. And I guess now is the time where we open it up to any questions you might have or any comments that you'd like to share about those two concepts and the amenities we described. So, who's daring to raise their hand first?
And we'll pass the microphone if that's okay.
I was just hoping you could talk a little bit about the golf and safety, but maybe the building on one side is a little bit better than the other. If you could just maybe compare those two. And both concepts have the ball field removed, right? So, okay, all right. So yeah, so just kind of how the golf goes around it and safe-wise.
Sure. Well, I think that's a really good point, because there were concepts that put the pool in this area. And we thought if you're going to do anything in an area where you're not really paying attention to that issue, it's probably not the thing to put in that portion of the site. Of course, right. So buildings make great shields for golf balls. Anyone that lives on the course probably knows that. But the idea is that some of these lawn spaces and buffer spaces just really act as a better connection to that use. Certainly a building makes sense, but what we were trying not to do was put things in that location that were really just sensitive to that safety factor. And so all of the concepts we sort of gravitated to either pushed the building in that location or pushed space in that location that was really more sporadically used, or just open lawn space. Related to that multi-purpose sports field, what we tried to do was create more opportunities for lawn space, recognizing that the feedback we got, and it was really just feedback we heard, was that it's really not being used for sports. Occasionally a group of people will come out there and do certain things, but we felt like having more variety to the lawn spaces gives people more choice, whether they want to gather, whether they do want to do maybe tossing a ball around, frisbee, but not try to preserve or replace a full functioning athletic field, only to find out people aren't using it for athletics. So I also want to hear your feedback on that. So if people disagree or have seen other uses there, we certainly want to talk about it, but we want to treat this more like a park environment and less like an athletic field with a community center next to it. So hopefully that's headed in the right direction.
Just a quick
I'm going to
question.
go ahead and let you talk into that so everyone hears your question.
Quick question. It looks like there's a fence around the pool and a pool lawn, and is that correct? Am I reading that dark,
Yes.
that black
Yes.
line as a fence? And then it looks like there might be a taller fence towards the golf course side, or
That's a pergola, I think.
Yeah, anytime you see that little railroad track,
Yeah.
that's meant to be kind of a little overhead.
I apologize. I forgot to point that out. Yeah. So here, there we go. Here, little bit here and here. That's, yeah, some sort of pergola, arbor, overhead structure. Yes, fencing, absolutely, right? We'd definitely have fencing around the pool facilities, definitely would have fencing around the school playground. If we felt, or the city felt like it was necessary to fence anywhere else in, that's always a great, option to do so. But, and then this green too, I might have forgotten, I apologize, to mention that anything in this green, this squiggly outline with this green shade would be some sort of vegetative buffer, right? So as much planting as we can do to help visually screen, the two amenities or the two different features essentially. Also hopefully protect a little bit from errant golf balls and things like that. So, yeah, of course.
One of the things that I'm a member of the HOA, Lake Arbor, and one of the things that they want to do, because a lot of the homes have golf balls, errant golf balls, come to them. You can install a higher fence or probably put trees in the area that, that front the golf course.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm just gonna go ahead and shout unless I can use that. It's a good point, because let's face it, most of the trees we buy are about this tall, and most of us hit hopefully higher than, so it's the kind of thing that it might warrant some higher netting in the first years of this project until that vegetation grows in thicker, maybe evergreen vegetation that doesn't leave in the shoulder seasons and stays up and protects the site.
Right.
But the idea is that it might be both of those things. But the idea is that, we don't want to just assume that we're going to build all these brand new amenities and hope that that problem solves itself, because it likely won't. Yeah.
I think I can talk without the microphone.
Okay, give it a shot.
I live between Safeway and Lake Arbor, so I'm a Lake Arbor member. I've got 4 kids, and we like the pool amenities. The kids are gonna love this.
Yeah.
And the communities are gonna love this. I think we could work together as a community too, because there's a lot of adults who would love this too with their kids. But I'm seeing this being able to work with the golf course too. And I know you mentioned you'll talk to the golf people, but I am a member and my kids do go to the community pool. I think everybody would be excited about this if we can make it safe with those extended on number 14, and there's a couple places even on the range where we have these really high fences.
Mm-hmm.
We could strategically put those and work with some of the guys who know the golf course very well,
Right.
and line this up to where it could be safe for everybody, and even take care of some of the neighbors who are complaining.
Yeah, that's
There
a
are
good
some-
point.
There are ways with those really tall, if you put those tall fences strategically where we need that, this could be very safe.
Yeah.
And especially in that area down there. With number 16, that area, usually golfers can't even hit the green. So they're right in front of that.
Yeah.
And then number 17 up the very top,
Yeah.
strategically put some fences along where they're teeing off.
Gotcha.
And I think you could get everybody on board with this. So that's great news.
Great comment. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
One of the things I wanted to say was I love your pictures of extensive glass area on the buildings. But again, because of the golf ball issue,
Yeah.
I think we want to forego that.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, because, for instance, some of these facades, you might have to think about that, or think about ways to maybe deal with that.
Right.
My parents face a golf course, and like my dad said, never be on the slice side of a fairway, always be on the hook side, because nobody knows how to draw the ball, but everybody knows how to slice a ball. But there are ways to sort of do some protective if you keep the windows pretty shielded and do other things. But really good point. It's nice to take in the glass. but we want to be thoughtful of where we locate it.
Yeah, I really think those tall fences strategically placed could take care of those concerns.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, this is the community, potentially community space, but it's just as likely that we could, do things so that you get maybe glass in one way and more solid in another. So there's things we can do to tackle that question.
And some of these designs, just a comment, like the one with the two buildings, you have basically 3 sides on each building that wouldn't be by the golf course.
True.
They would
Yeah.
be faced away.
Yeah.
Where this one building, you've got 2 long sides that
Mhm.
could be a potential
Right.
problem if you had
Yeah.
windows on those sides.
Right, we're not too worried about the locker room side, but the preschool community side is probably asking for a little bit
You
of.
want to bring natural light in, I would
Right,
think.
right, no,
But
good point.
Just a comment.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, and I see this building as very much sort of focused kind of on this space and this lawn space, so I think the comment about fencing is probably,
Yeah.
this one requires fencing, this one could probably be,
Strategic, more strategic.
yeah. I mean, really in this concept, this is really the space that feels like the kind of the gathering and seating and, those types of uses and not necessarily.
One of the things that I see in the, yeah, the.
It's right here, I don't have to walk very far.
The concept one is got the public playground in existing location, and I think that is poor for the projectiles from the golf course.
Okay, so this concept, because the pool is sort of, playground is kind of very similar location. Yeah, right now it's right about,
It's on the
probably right
backside.
about here.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know if everyone heard, but the idea in that concept is that there's some concern about the playground location given the proximity.
Yeah, and I don't know, do we know, has it been a problem with the golf course as it is? We don't go there a ton, but I've never noticed.
I think
Golf balls.
that huge buffer of the
Yeah,
athletic field,
so-
you'd have to really.
But so is the
snap
playground
around it.
moving in both scenarios? I know on that concept one, where you're saying that's not actually the existing.
It's in a location that's probably more, if
Okay.
I'm correct, guys, it's probably right about here, so we're
And
just
it-
moving it.
And it moved the existing equipment, is that what, or not necessarily?
I think that's hard to say, at the timeline of everything, right, when the master plan
That's
is
true.
completed.
That's
and
true. We
everyone's
don't have
constructed.
funding or anything,
Right,
so it-
exactly. If it took 10
It's not
years,
tomorrow, yeah.
right,
Let's hope
then,
not, but.
then the equipment's probably aged enough that it might just make sense to have new equipment at that point. So yeah, it's so hard to say.
Got it.
It would be, of course, we would never want to waste play equipment.
Sure.
But yeah, it's hard to say at this point.
I can answer too, from like a licensing perspective and our preschool, we don't catch too many golf balls
Okay.
in the playground. We do, however, in the pool.
In the pool, okay.
Got myself some good Pro V1s out of that. So
Probably more.
but not ideal, yeah.
It's good.
Is there any SEPTED concerns with the public playground being kind of less visible from the main road?
Perfect comment. That's exactly, so when we started moving that bubble around, bubble one said, hey, we want that to be kind of front door. Another option was maybe that's a little bit more of a protected thing that's part of a more, sheltered area. And like I said, I think you could make an argument for both, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on, maybe vote on a preference for that. Yeah.
And it looks like from the street, you could look at both from the street because the pool is going to be in the ground. So you would be able to see a straight shot, I would think, to the playground, to the pool lawn, to the tennis courts.
Yeah, this is the only concept that really you have to think about where things are because the buildings sort of take over more. As your point, this site with the building kind of as a backdrop, you kind of get a pretty clear vista
View of
through the whole
everything that way.
site, some different feel to it, yeah. I saw a hand pop up and then pop down, a little prairie dog going on the side. Did I miss that? That was just my, okay, great. No other thoughts or questions?
Just my comment is just about the safety. I think you need to put it all around, put the fences up.
Better
all
safe
around.
than sorry.
Right.
Can take them down if we never see a golf ball hit them.
Yeah, that can
Fair
happen.
enough. Any other questions or thoughts?
With tennis court, is there any multi-use with pickleball? Like you could line it with pickleball lines and just for recreational play?
I'm not taking that one on, but if I was a neighbor, I'd probably push back on that, but I don't know if that question has come up.
I think one of them is lined for pickleball.
Does it get a lot of use for pickleball?
People find out it will.
It sounds like
Well-
a good idea, I don't know.
I mean, there's no reason that it couldn't. Obviously, it's easy to strike for that use. It's just a question of the sound with neighbors so
I
close
see.
in.
Yeah.
That's usually the pushback. But
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, no, Chris is absolutely right. It's a great question, and we get it frequently across all the tennis courts in Arvada and the community. And the side that's very interested in striping for different uses, just as vocal or less so than the side that wants to keep it a tennis court. So certainly something we'd go through the process and planning, and it'd be probably pretty elaborate to get to, hey, multi-uses, and are those multi-uses like official with that particular tennis court?
The pickleball diehards, the netting would be a little bit higher, right?
Yeah.
So like, there's some pros and cons, but multi-use I feel is fitting for a neighborhood setting.
Yeah, thank you. That's great feedback. Really appreciate it.
I'm just handing it
Yeah,
over.
okay. Other comments, questions?
All right, are you ready to step on to the next, you guys need to take a look at some pools now.
I'll take it. Alrighty, guys, we'll step into the pool stuff now. So, just want to, first comment I want to make, right, is so depending on what we do with the building and how things lay out on the site, these pool shapes could change significantly, right? So, and also depending on the features that people want, things like that. So this is, really what we want to focus on is how things are kind of grouped together, what we like and what we don't like, and then we'll also talk about some features, see if there's anything we really, really want to get into, or if there's stuff we want to stay away from. So I'm going to walk through each concept to start. So concept one here, we've got two separate pools, both of them being larger bodies of water, right? So this one up here, we've got 4 lanes of lap swimming, that'd be 25-yard lap swimming. We'd also have a sun shelf here with some loungers so people could hang out, get some sun. And then the bottom pool here is a traditional multi-purpose pool, right? So what we'd have is a water slide that land in like a catch area that you could also use for, different types of programming if you don't have the water slide running. We'd have a small lazy river with some sprays or some water features. And then we'd also have a zero depth entry, have some water features in there as well for the younger kids. So our first concept is just, how those two are separated is you've got the lap lanes over here, sun shelf, and then everything else in this body of water. Concept two, a little bit different here, right? We'd have a dedicated, what people call a wading pool or a kiddie pool, right? So a little bit bigger, but it's going to be shallow water and it's going to have a lot of spray features for younger kids. So, an advantage to keeping that separated is, we all know that a lot of pool accidents occur with really young kids, right? So the advantage of having this by itself is, you can isolate that. The rest of the pool can stay open if something like that happens. We've also, in this one, we've got a couple more lap lanes. So 6 lanes of lap swimming here, 25-yard. And then we've also got a kind of a simpler current channel, lazy river type feature over here. A couple different stair entries and sun shelves. And then we'd still have that water slide feature as well. But instead of landing in the pool, it would be standalone and it would end in a run out. So maybe you guys have seen that at Waterworld, stuff like that. But it doesn't land in a pool. It lands in kind of a fiberglass trough. So those are the two concepts here. We can jump into features after this, but really just wanted to get some comments and some thoughts, how these things are bunched together, what people prefer. Maybe, there's a strong preference for having 6 lanes versus 4 lanes, that kind of thing. So just want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Are there any staffing differences between the two concepts?
So
Staffing differences between the two concepts, so, to manage it, how many numbers of staff do you need compared to the two concepts?
That's an awesome question. I would say that these are honestly pretty comparable. If we start adding different separate bodies of water, right, you start adding more than 2, that's where you'd start having your staffing numbers really increase. So there was one, we had talked through, like, maybe we do the current channel as a standalone body of water. Well, we wanted to get away from that because then you need a whole separate lifeguard specifically for that pool. So there's a couple different ways you can set it up so that guards can cover multiple areas. You can set up different peninsulas and wing walls so that they can hang out there and see several areas. But I'd say these two options are comparable.
What about the difference between the two slides? Is that a challenge? I mean, because one you would require one guard and one you require, if it goes into a body of water, is that a difference?
So both of them, no matter what, you're going to need someone who dispatches, right? So someone who's at the top telling you, hey, you can go down. And then, what you can do, yeah, you'd probably save one guard in this concept. You'd have one guard down here, but you might still need that other guard for other shapes
But your point is
in the other bigger pool.
wash.
It's a bit of a wash, yeah.
One of the times we use those trough slides is to sort of save that, but in this case, because you've got other amenities, it may not.
For sure. And something for you guys to consider too, when we do these slides with the runouts here instead of going into the pool, usually the height requirement is less, but you still get a similar experience. So as an aquatic designer, that's why I usually prefer to go with the runouts, because younger kids can use it instead of just the older kids. So.
Yeah, I don't know what zero entry means.
So zero entry is just a beach. I should have explained that more, but basically it's, you're coming in at 0 inches of water and you're working your way down to 3'6" or 4 feet of water.
Okay.
So just like you'd have it like maybe a resort pool, something like that. But it works really well not only for people hanging out but also younger kids, right? So.
And ADA compliance too.
ADA compliance, yeah. Both of these, we'd make sure that all the options are fully ADA compliant. What you can do, and this is something that maybe if there's a strong preference for it, you can add a ramp instead of using one of those lifts, right? So there are the pool lifts, and I'll be honest, not a whole lot of people like to use them, right? Ramps draw less attention, and it's easier to use. So that's something that could also be added on really any of these pools if they don't have a beach entry.
Used for people who aren't as able-bodied to get into the pool with the handrails, so it's a secondary reason too.
Yep.
But also a hazard. Kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they hang on it thinking and they slip right off and end up,
Exactly.
They're slippery, the rails, right? You got it.
For sure. So we've got some pictures of features and stuff after this, if we want to get into that, but just want to make sure, any other comments, questions, things we want to talk about?
I prefer the zero entry one, the concept 2, because that's a lower body of water, and usually kids at the existing pool, they tend to go further than what parents like.
That's a good observation.
Super good point. Sometimes kids can get carried away if the beach goes down to 3'6" or 4 feet of water depth. So what he's saying here is this concept, you would come down to deeper water, right? Whereas in concept 2, you'd kind of stay at that 1 foot water depth. So not as much, potential for kids to get in too deep.
Will the lap lanes have a deep end?
Yes. So, traditionally what we do with lap pools, it's almost like you'd see in any other lap pool, but you've got a deep end and a shallow end. And what we try and do is we'd pair features that work well with deep water over in that deep end. Shallow end, maybe you've got a basketball hoop or a volleyball net, something like that, but stuff that works in shallow. So, yes, deep end, shallow. Good go. Sweet. The next slide. Alrighty, so I'll just cruise through these real quick, and then, we've got an exercise we'll do at the end here for preferences, but if there's specific comments or concerns, we'll run through those too. So spray features, these are typically just standalone. You can see them in either a lazy river or in a beach entry like we have in this picture. You can do as many or as few of them as you'd like, so that's always a really good option if you don't have a space for a play structure, right, which takes up more room in those shallow areas. Something that's really coming on quick lately is a rope swing, and so it's a, they call it a zip line, but it's more of a rope swing type product. But you can use it anywhere as shallow as 4 feet, so definitely cool for the kiddos. Water volleyball and water basketball are classics, right, and also really not very costly. So super easy things to add a lot of fun. So we've got an obstacle course down here. We also call this a lily pad walk. You guys might have seen this at water parks and things like that. You can also do some of these little floatables as standalone, and kids can climb on top of them. So it doesn't need to be a whole stack of them. It can be just one or two if we want that. Play structure, like I said, so it's, you know, almost kind of like an aquatic jungle gym that your kids can climb up on. Use the sprays, use the slides. Sun shelves are really, really popular these days, especially with, kind of higher end or resort feel type pools. It's a good spot to, tan or hang out with your friends. Water slides, we kind of talked about those, so I'll move past that one. But yeah, we would be looking at a commercial grade water slide. Lazy river, you also might hear me call it a current channel sometimes if they're a little bit smaller. But, get some moving water in a kind of a shallow corridor. It's good for, hanging out for recreation, but also sometimes people like to water walk against the current. Shaded seating is going to be really important. I know Ainsley and Chris talked about that. Lap pool, we talked about 25-yard lanes, and then zero depth entry. There's a picture of, that beach that you'd be using. So, any thoughts on features? We'll have like a dot exercise at the back where you can pick your favorites, but.
Can you add one?
Yeah, what do you?
Rock climbing.
Oh, climbing wall. Okay, yeah, so just mentioned the climbing wall. That's another one. So we would do that in the deeper zone, but yeah, there are climbing walls that you can add to the deck, so.
I like rope swing.
Yeah,
My granddaughter just showed me pictures of her doing it. So.
Yeah, the rope swing product is by the same guys that make the climbing walls. So they're both by AquaClimb. But yeah, the rope swing thing is cool. And what I like about that as a designer is it works in 4 feet of water. So you can do it shallower, whereas the climbing wall, a little bit deeper. But both are doable.
Well, it engages the older kids too.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So.
From the lazy river, like you said, for exercise, if they have class or something like that.
Yeah, the dual purpose is great, for sure.
Yeah, I think from the word spreading about this new community center, that usually our kids are talking about lazy river, the slide, and the rope swing. I think that, hey, there's a rope swing, there's a slide, there's a lazy river.
Yep.
I think would attract more people.
Yeah, and the little kids like the spray feature.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, and there's room to fit all that in there, right? So we were looking at some nice multi-purpose pools. So, absolutely. Go. All right, I think that's it. We can do our next little exercise here. I'll hand it back to Ainsley.
So that concludes the presentation. So of course, any questions that you guys want to ask in front of the whole group, we can do now. Feel free to come up to us. Otherwise, we've got all the boards. About half the presentation boards are printed back there. Shannon's handing out the little sticker dots, so feel free, if you need more, we've got plenty. But feel free to just vote on your favorites. Just put a sticker where you see something you really like. We've also got a pile on that orange stool right there of sticky notes and pens. So if you just have longer comments you want to leave, please feel free to do so. So thank you guys. This is really helpful and we're really excited. So we appreciate everybody's feedback.